Change, the unwritable and unthinkable. The problem is that we're protected from witnessing inner change, our own inner changes, largely by our own social conventions, by what's called, quote, sanity, unquote, and for that matter, just general social sanitation. We do everything we can not to come into contact with our conflicting emotions, our anger, and all the rest of the stuff that may be festering in our psyches. In reality, our internal worlds have no such fixed boundaries, and they can easily include more than a little chaos, not to mention all manner of undigested experiences, paradoxes that we've come across or come up against but have failed to assimilate, especially relating to ourself. The self does not like to be embarrassed. We habitually just ignore and we tune out what we don't understand or fear, and we do our best to keep it at arm's length. We just close our eyes to it all, and we keep them shut. I'm surprised how little Western society knows about its own inner life, about what goes on in here, just beneath the surface, just beneath the veneer. So this post is touching on that, but I'm not going to probe. On the inside, mostly connected to our self-image, we literally experience mental earthquakes all the time, as the great tectonic plates of our fabricated self move and rearrange themselves within us in response to change, and mostly in an attempt to keep change from reaching us. After all, the self is the ultimate conservative, totally afraid of changing. Everything must be as it is. Nothing must change. It protects itself. And our own self is very protective of its very existence, and it functions as what is called in the esoteric literature a ring pass not between itself and our actual mind, a filter that we can't or we won't easily see through, like blinders. The self, at least in this society, is not transparent, and that's by design. As the great German philosopher Hegel so aptly put it, we go behind the curtain of the self to see what is there, but mainly for there to be something to be seen, end quote. That's how much we fear awareness, or what is sometimes called emptiness. Self does not like to be empty. The self is like our own private ventriloquist dummy, and we're the ventriloquist, although we have managed to fall into the unfortunate habit of taking orders and direction from the dummy rather than to get to know our true nature. A simple twist of fate, as Dylan put it. And it's the self that's responsible solely for most of the difficulties we have in recognizing and incorporating inner change at times like these. Like the fury of a sudden summer storm, our inner worlds can and they do collide, and we are literally hurled through a space and time that we cannot manage, or we can't stand to keep it in mind, and we're just too happy just to forget it. And when this inner turmoil passes or quiets down, we settle to living, again, and have scarcely a memory of what took place, of what we just lived through in our internal life. But there sometimes are telltale signs left behind. Like magnets that oppose one another, parts of our inner psyche are reflected in the mirror of the self, and we sometimes can catch a brief glimpse of truth in the corner of the eye. And that little bit of truth is overwhelming. And what happens is that we just kind of shut down when things get too much and we crawl off to sleep through it, sleep it off. Our day-to-day outward busyness, just daily life, may or may not reflect the storms that are raging inside of us. Some days we're just tired. And what do you think gets us tired? What do we go through that we are mostly unaware of? Have you ever had such an embarrassing or difficult thought that you found yourself spontaneously saying something out loud, like, despite yourself, in an attempt not to look at it? That's what I'm pointing at here, and this happens a lot. Now, you may feel that I'm magnifying the effects of change as it relates to the self, just for dramatic effect, and yeah, I may be doing that, but not as not that strongly. When change emerges in the mind, like during eclipse times or solar flares, everyone in the world takes it at the same time, and we all take it personally. But we seldom realize that everyone present in the world shares the same energy at the same moment. Instead, we each tend to turn inward and experience it, or so we think, privately. Imagine a garden of flowers that are all closing at once and then opening back up again when the change has passed. No one saw anything. In fact, we do this all the time. Anyway, enough about psychological disturbances that we somehow endure because we can't manage to look at our own self in the eye. Change itself is nothing less than a shot of pure energy into space and time that allows our great constipated inner worlds to move, to expand and contract as they will or must, and neither you nor I can fully control it. We can hunker down and we can ride the change out, or we can learn by training to take advantage and use that change creatively. In a very real way, our sense of time is a social convention lived by the majority, a mere consensus. And we don't always remain within that social convention. But in times of change, in odd moments and days and hours of our life, some of us may wander or even be pushed into more unusual, into altered states of mind and altered sense of time. We may not remember it because we find it just too hard to grasp, much less sustain the awareness of it. So we just kind of shut down in there. And this is more the rule rather than the exception. Eternity, whatever we mean by that, does not exist somewhere out there in our future at the livelong end of history, and at the end of linear time, calendar time. Eternity exists right now, and of course deep within or without time. Time does not just extend to some linear end as we may like to believe. Instead, as individuals, we extend, we stretch time, and our mind itself is stretched, and we endure for the length of our effort. We last until then. Say it differently. In other words, we go between the moments of clock-ticking time. We stretch time and make time for the things we care about and extend ourselves in that effort. In moments of great change, we leap between the seconds beyond time to the day of creation itself, all the way back to the beginning. We become co-creators if we can keep our eyes open. Eternity is always found just in time. By becoming more and more aware of the actual nature of the self as something we habitually fabricate, that we make up, we can increasingly be aware of what change is and begin to participate creatively, consciously, in shaping our own life and destiny. Is this too weird to consider? Give it a thought.